I request President Mr. Ganapathy to kindly deliver the formal welcome address, please.
Ms. Padmaja Chandru, Managing Director and CEO, Senior Vice President of SICI, Vice President of SICI, esteemed past presidents, members of the Executive Committee, members of the Chamber, special invitees, and friends from the media. It's a high privilege and honor for me, on behalf of the Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to welcome you all to the 110th AGM of SICI. And in particular, I welcome a banker I've known for over 15 years, first as head of State Bank in Americas, and now as Managing Director and CEO of Indian Bank, Ms. Padmaja Chandru, for agreeing to be the chief guest of our AGM. The visit of Madam Padmaja to our chamber is long overdue and didn't happen for multiple reasons, and we had problems in scheduling. The economic impact of the 2020 coronavirus pandemic in India has been largely disruptive. While it's fair to presume that US, amongst others, went into this pandemic from a historical high, India perhaps went into this from a significant low. This is reiterated by the World Bank when it said that the present pandemic has magnified pre-existing risks to India's economic outlook. The World Bank and rating agencies had initially revised India's growth for FY21 with the lowest figures India has seen in 3 decades since India's economic liberalization in the 90s. However, after the announcement of the economic package in mid-May, India's GDP estimates were downgraded even more to negative figures, signaling a deep recession. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented shock to the Indian economy. The economy was already in a perilous state before COVID-19 struck. With a prolonged countrywide lockdown, global economic downturn, and associated disruption of demand and supply chains, the economy is likely to face a protracted period of slowdown. The magnitude of the economic impact will depend upon the duration and severity of the health crisis, the duration of the lockdown, and the manner in which the situation unfolds once the lockdown is lifted completely. It is now almost certain that there will be a significant recession world over, and India is not likely to remain decoupled. Further, 90% of India's workforce is employed in the unorganized sector, and this lockdown will effectively put over 45 million migrants living off daily earnings out of work. Sectors like construction projects, mobility services, housekeeping, and other informal sector employment will come to a sudden halt. Manufacturing sector faces a triple challenge. First, there are going to be serious supply chain distortions, not just when dealing with foreign parties, but also the domestic industry. Secondly, sectors like automobiles, pharmaceuticals, electronics, chemical products, etc., are facing an imminent raw material and component shortage. Further, the shutdown and resulting loss of revenue is certain to cause a number of bankruptcies and closures, especially in the MSME sector, with corresponding disruption to supply chains. On the demand side, several industries would get impacted, starting with the consumer durables, and will cascade to other intermediate goods and basic goods. The government was the major spender on investment in infrastructure construction, which will slow now with resources and attention being diverted. Hence, industries like steel and cement, which did well last year, could well stumble. Consumers who are locked up at home cannot spend on goods other than essentials, and corporates will not think of investing. Hence, manufacturing output and investment will be under pressure for the next few quarters. During COVID-19, as part of government's 20 lakh crore economic stimulus package, Honorable Finance Minister announced structural measures in industries, mining, agriculture. What we require now is a complete overhaul of the current industrial policy and an agrarian policy towards Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, or Self-Reliant India mission. A new business model perhaps needs to be created with the Government of India, Reserve Bank, and the NBFCs. Out of the total interest outstanding, say at least 50% of the interest portion should be waived, which could be, say, around 4 lakh crores. Government and RBI must necessarily be the backstop for this. The question today is not whether can India afford to spend. The question really is, can India afford not to spend? This is also my swan song, and it's a moment to express my gratitude to some stalwarts who did the heavy lifting for me during the past 2 years at the leadership level. All of what we have done could not have been possible without the support and guidance of leaders like Dr. A.C. Muthaiah, Mr. Vellayan, the extraordinary camaraderie provided by Mr. Rafiq Ahmed and Dr. Palni Periyaswamy, and the huge opportunities provided by Mr. Jawar Vadivelu inspired me to attempt to do things differently, even as other past presidents like Mr. R. Muthu and Dr. Gangadharan backed every initiative that we took. While it is for them to decide if I measured up to their expectations, the real contribution of the past years came from successful professionals who have left footprints in the sands of times in their respective professions and business. I never tired telling Mr. Arun Alagappan, our Vice President, that these guys have better thinking than many of us. Their ability to think laterally is perhaps what might have put SICKI in front and center at many times during crises. Let me begin with my own junior in IIT Madras and the man who built Cognizant to what it is today, Mohan Narayanan, who now spends his time nurturing India's next cycle of relevance in the committee of the world, the startups. Paul Jacob, whose buildings figure in the top 50 in the country, always delivered what he promised. Kumar Pal Chopra and Shreyans Bhandari, two sides of a coin, combining well, one as a leading corporate lawyer and the other as a leading chartered accountant, worked tirelessly on several initiatives, including the visit to Israel, which prompted the Indian ambassador to Tel Aviv, Pawan Kapoor, to tell me and the delegation that this was the SICKI's delegation was the best ever he had received. I asked both of them to take a bow. How can I forget Mike Muralidharan? Mike was always with me. There was not one program that we delivered Mike did not support. The back end in my office led by Shireen, who put in long hours to stitch the ever missing dots, and to Dr. Raghavan and Aishwarya, particularly during the last 6 months, when both kept their watches aside and worked day and night. I reserve the last for the best. If as governor of Rotary, I invited him to serve Rotary in the highest echelons of the Rotary district, AVM Balu, as he's popularly known, invited me to be part of SICKI and took me along with him on a memorable delegation to Vietnam and got me excited about the chamber. Thanks, Balu. History will judge all of them for their contribution to the growth of SICKI. It's now my high privilege and honor to invite our Vice President, Managing Director of Chola Investment and Finance Limited, to introduce a banker who thinks differently, a banker who is successful and leads by example, my good friend and Managing Director and CEO of Indian Bank, Ms. Padmaja Chandru. With these remarks, I once again welcome you all to the 110th AGM of SICKI, and I now request Mr. Arun Alagappan, Vice President, to introduce our chief guest. Mic is yours, Arun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ganapathy, for your warm welcome. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Success isn't just about what you accomplish in life. It's about how you inspire others to do. Dear members, our chief guest for this evening has not just achieved great success in her field of work, but has also inspired many more women and men alike. She is a role model, and her success story is an inspiration for thousands of younger generation banking professionals in India. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our chief guest, Shri Padmaja Chandru, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Indian Bank. Shri Padmaja is a postgraduate in Commerce from Andhra University and a certified associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers. In a career spanning more than 3 decades with postings in India and US, she has significant expertise across retail operations, corporate lending, credit management, digital banking, treasury, and international operations. Prior to joining as MD and CEO of Indian Bank in September 2018, Shri Padmaja served across many roles at the State Bank of India. She was the Deputy Managing Director heading Global markets, and digital banking verticals at SBI. Earlier, she was also the country head of SBI in the USA. She has also served as the vice chair of board of directors and chair of executive committee of SBI California, a US-based subsidiary bank of SBI. An astute leader, she was chosen to head the combined US Ops Risk Committee constituted under Dodd-Frank Act and was also on the banking committee of US-India Business Council. She was also a member of the board of trustees of the International Bankers Association, New York, and the Pacific Rim Bankers Group, San Francisco. Presently, she's a member of the board of Life Insurance Corporation of India. She's also a member in the managing committee of Indian Banks Association and a member of the Insurance Advisory Committee of IRDAI. Ladies and gentlemen, in counting her achievements, it's only natural to overlook the admirable qualities of the person herself. She has always been a caring, empathetic, and warm human being. Quoting her from an interview to the Economic Times in 2016, the defining moment of her career was not sanctioning $1 billion of loans or recovering a few hundred crores, but was helping stranded people due to the ravage caused by the cyclone in a coastal village near Visakhapatnam. Dear Madam, it is indeed a pleasure to host you. On behalf of the members, I once again welcome you to the 110th Annual General Meeting of SICI. Without further ado, I hand over the session for the Chief Guest address. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me this privilege and this opportunity. Mr. Ganapathy, President, South India Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Arun Alagappan, Vice President, SICI Chennai, Mr. Arun, Senior Vice President, SICI, esteemed members of SICI Chennai and other dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all of you. I feel very privileged to be at this 110th Annual General Meeting of SICI. I think I have been participating in all the activities of SICI since the time I've reported in Indian Bank. And that's been because of your very active and very vibrant Mr. Ganapathy being with us all through. Again, in all the activities of Indian Bank also, I do consult with him and take his advice and guidance, and it gives a very good practical approach to issues. It is a matter of delight and pride that SICI and Indian Bank share a commonality in their origins. Both were established as part of our country's Swadeshi movement. Indian Bank was established in 1907 and SICI in 1909, and both are going strong beyond a century. This clearly testifies to their enduring spirit. SICI has been a vibrant organization in this part of India, and I would take this opportunity to congratulate SICI and Mr. Ganapathy for the various initiatives taken under his presidency. Especially since the onset of the COVID pandemic, the ease with which SICI has moved on to the digital way. And I also saw that the webinars that were conducted were really very relevant and thoughtful. The Think Global, Act Indian series, and also the Unprecedented Crisis and the Way Forward. These all prove my point that all activities of SICI have gone on with renewed vigor and this proves what is possible when we refuse to be cowed down by events. The COVID-19 pandemic has severely disrupted the economy and affected all industries at large. India's GDP growth declined to 4.2% in FY20, with the growth momentum that was visible during the Q3 and Q4 of the year dissipating quickly under the shadow of the global pandemic. There have been many challenges, and I think there have been many speakers talking about all the logistics and other human and also material challenges to the world with this COVID pandemic. The hindrance in logistics has been a big issue. There has been supply chain disruptions, and all this I talk in the backdrop of because MSME sector has been really under a lot of stress. And from the bank's point of view also, we are looking at that sector with a much more focus. So naturally that that actually makes it very relevant for us that we keep that at the back of our mind when we talk of industry and the economy. The social distancing, the phased lockdown, all these have added to the stress not only of the banks but also their customers. And this is a symbiotic relationship. So a problem in the bank or with the customer ultimately goes to the other balance sheet. The industries have faced a dip in demand and deferred payments. There's a high degree of uncertainty on the recovery in even global economies. And though bright spots are visible across the globe, these have been not yet sustaining enough to see that there is a trend and there is a pickup that will eventually happen. Until a vaccine or a cure is fully in place, this uncertainty will continue. But given that position, I think it is for all of us, all the leaders of the industry that are the members of SICI and bankers like us, and also the other stakeholders, the government itself, to act and to actually take it in our stride and move on. The problem is that this is not the end of the issue is that this is not the end of the world. Once we get over this COVID pandemic through a vaccine, which I have no doubt will come in the next 3 or 4 months, but there would be some other risk going forward. This is a part of life. It has become a part of life, whether it is climate change, whether it is other environmental concerns, or it is human disruptions, or populism, globalism, trade wars. So there are too many issues that are upending our plans. So today there is nothing like a long-term plan. Even a 5-year plan looks very futuristic. I think it is 1 year, 3 years, and after 3 years, it's again subject to review. Given this situation, I think the governments and the central banks across the globe have acted very proactively, and some may say it has been an overstretch, but in my opinion, I think the way the Reserve Bank of India and the government of India have acted in tandem to provide succor to the needy sectors, especially the MSME, the self-help groups, and even the NBFCs and the microfinance institutions, which actually provide the last mile connectivity. I think this has been a very helpful step, even for the sectors definitely, and for the banks also. There have been many relaxations. There have been many measures that have been taken. And I don't want to go into detail of all this because as industry and as borrowers of banks, you would all be aware of the measures that have been put in place, whether it is the relaxations in the working capital, the guaranteed emergency credit facilities, the export-import encouragement measures, and also now the restructuring that is announced by Reserve Bank of India for the corporates, for the personal retail customers, and also MSME. The state governments have also added their own interest subsidies and other softs as per their policies. So all this works well as long as these are actually properly implemented. And this implementation to a large extent is happening through the banks today. And banks themselves are again subject to the same pandemic. We have declared as essential services, and we are again facing the same issues that other sectors of the economy are facing. Our staff are getting impacted by the COVID. Unfortunately, banks are losing people. Also, people are sacrificing their lives. Unwittingly, of course, but it's happening. And still, we are moving on with better measures, with better BCP plans and enhanced safety protocols. That said, from a financial institution's perspective, we need to flatten the curve. And for flattening the curve, it implies that showing resilience by minimizing disruptions and ensuring that the financial impact of the pandemic is mitigated. Beyond the operational actions already underway, financial services industry players need to actively consider the short, medium, and long-term operational, financial, risk, and regulatory compliance implications resulting from the continued uncertainty around the pandemic. We have been reanalyzing our business models and planning for different scenarios. Not only the capital, the hit on the capital or the requirement of capital, but also other issues like how would people work from home? How can we provide security to the bank against cyber risks, which is again evolving as a fallout of the increased digitized way of working now. and how the business continuity plan needs to be constantly evolving and also reviewed so that we don't end up in a situation which we could not foresee. There will definitely be disruptions and delinquencies even among the accounts. And these challenges will, however, open up choices for deepening customer relationships. I had the chance of listening to the last part of Mr. Rajneesh Kumar's speech. And what he said about connecting with the customers during this pandemic, it has actually improved rather than be a hurdle. Even from Indian Bank, we are able to connect with a lot more customers now virtually rather than traveling to their places, and even video tours of their facilities are possible now. And this was possible earlier also, but the pandemic brought it closer and made us do this without any further delay. And as you all are aware, we also went through an amalgamation process. The Allahabad Bank got amalgamated into Indian Bank with effect from 1st April. And this amalgamation went through during the same period that we were impacted by this COVID and all the disruptions that come with it. So after going through this process and having now completed one successful quarter of amalgamation, I can say with some confidence that if we just focus on the things at hand and make sure that all the risks are attended to the best of our ability, it is still possible to work and to get there. The only thing is, I think, not get distracted by the entire talk around the whole world is crumbling kind of a doomsday scenario. There are bright spots and there are our people who are working with us. I think that's a great positive for all the sectors. The banks are investing in technologies of the future, and this technology investment has accelerated during the COVID. But the biggest challenge and what has happened overnight almost is the mindset change. Even 4 or 5 months back, I wouldn't have believed that Indian Bank could so quickly move on to a situation where most of our meetings happen, all our meetings happen online, all the board meetings and also the customer meets, but also paperless way of working. We are in the process of almost entirely doing away with paper in the corporate center, and this will quickly move down the line. So all this, which would have taken at least 2-3 years of coding, have now become possible almost overnight. Over the next few quarters, I will first talk of the banking sector, the challenges, because this is something that is very evident and it's first-hand for me. And then I'll move on to the industry, which is our next stakeholder. Over the next few quarters, the banking sector will definitely face a misalignment between the short-term costs and revenues due to the economic impact of COVID-19. Added to this, there would be the impact of the moratorium, the impact of the restructuring, the impact of the stress in the various sectors that is coming onto the bank's balance sheets. But we are preparing to handle the situation, to work with RBI, to work with the government and work internally to see that we while extending the credit to all the needy sectors, we also take care of the bank's balance sheet and also focus on a granular way in different sectors. Not all sectors need the same kind of handholding that a MSME or a particular self-employed firm would need. So we are looking at various ways of tweaking the customization in this. It also needs a lot of operating model adjustments. Over the next few quarters, it will be very challenging for the banks. And this I can say as we see the stress test being conducted. And the only resilience that is coming into the bank's balance sheet is through the long-term buildup of capital, the prudent way of lending, the caution and care with which the operations are being maintained. And I think this resilience is what I would talk of in the next few minutes. The Indian Bank, again, to help its customers, it has rolled out several measures from time to time. And these include the emergency COVID loans to across the sectors to all our customers. Apart from this, there is the TREDS platform. This is the receivable discounting platform. The bank has gone on to all the 3 platforms. But my fervent appeal to all the industries and the industry heads is please get enrolled on the TREDS platform. This would help your suppliers, the smaller MSMEs and the smaller units that are facing liquidity issues. The various MSME specific products have also been brought out, like the electric vehicle financing, which we call the e-Vahan, the water filtration device, which we call the IB Pure Jaldhara, etc. There is also a very fast track to move to fund the self-help, to fund the startups. And this, we are working with some of you in SICKI to see how we can do it faster. There is of course, we also administer all the government schemes, and 74% of the loans that are eligible under the guaranteed credit line by the government, these have already been sanctioned, and disbursement is also happening at a fast pace. What we see as a success here is the cluster approach. The Indian Bank itself has 27 MSME clusters, and all these clusters are doing well with a very low level of NPA. It is not that they are anyway special or lucky. It is, I think, the team and also the scaling up of economies of scale that come in by sharing the costs, sharing the utilities. And this is one approach that Indian Bank wants to take forward and provide more cluster financing. Now I would come to the other industries. Interestingly, when we see the industries that we fund or the sectors that are banking with us, what we find is that there is really no one sector that is very much impacted, and there is another sector that is doing perfectly well. It is mostly about the discipline of the promoters. It is about the strength in the balance sheet. It is about how much they can hold on, how much cash is there in the coffers, how much liquidity is there. Liquidity problems can very quickly escalate into solvency issues, as we are seeing in some of the industries or some of the companies that are today having to sell their stake at a throwaway price because they cannot now maintain the ratings or the repayment obligations that are coming up on a day-to-day basis. I think no one planned for COVID, but again, if the COVID or some other risk, these issues would crop up again and again, and cash is king. That is something that companies have to bear in mind. Some industries definitely have changed forever, whether it is aviation, hospitality, tourism, and even event management. Wherever there is a personal touch required and a contact is required, this has been impacted in the short run, definitely. But some industries and some sectors suddenly see the world opening up for them. And this spans across healthcare, wellness, e-commerce, online education. Then I also find ergonomic furniture, whether it's work from home or work from in the office. There is a lot more awareness about the health and the fitness, online yoga classes. So all these are things that we never thought would be possible. E-conferencing, we know the success of Zoom. Virtual events, even marriages are now being held virtually. So as a banker, I always wonder, how do the companies face this slowdown? Which sector will do well? We have been seeing big corporate names suddenly facing liquidity stress, as I mentioned. And that is tragic, because not only the company, the shareholders lose, the promoters also lose, but it is also the assets lose in value and the banks lose too. So it's a lose-lose, as we say, as against a win-win that could have been possible had they had the holding power to hold on for another May 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months. We also have examples of companies reinventing their business models. Star hotels suddenly have become exclusive wedding venues. Fine dining has morphed into home delivery. And all this happens with a nimbleness, agility, and speed, both in thinking and execution. So it is not that all of them have given up and said, okay, this is one industry that won't come up and we might as well shut shop. But they have been thinking on their feet and moving on. The COVID pandemic has exposed the fragilities in our system. I think that is what they say, the music stops suddenly and many are left holding the baby. But hard times make people do and think things they had never imagined in normal times. And this is what I earlier mentioned about technology adoption, which has been fast-tracked because of the COVID pandemic. As a banker, I interact with a cross-section of customers from ranging right from the big corporates to the MSMEs and even to the self-help group members. This gives me a vantage point to understand what makes some firms last and sustain while others dissipate and just vanish under stress. What is the differentiator? I think again, as I mentioned, it is the focus on the numbers. Own your numbers, own the balance sheet, understand the liquidity position, and keep that cushion available. I think in good times, it is very easy to lose sight of the stress that can come. We always have to provide for that one event that would upend every plan that we have. And some kind of a cushion has to be built into the balance sheet for that. The other part is that I find that a lot of promoters overstretching, entering into very diverse areas where we may not have the synergies with the core business. And these are all the non-core activities that might do well when the going is good, but when it turns to the other direction, then we are left without adequate liquidity and no real valuations to sell these assets. With this, I find again and again in many of our companies which earlier were in restructuring promised that they would divest their non-core investments, but now today there are no takers. And there is, even for a good flourishing business which was flourishing till 3 months back, today there is no way to go except sell out. The treatment of employees, I think this is the soft side of the business that we would like to emphasize. How well we treat our employees, how caring we are of the employees or of the labor. We have seen the human tragedy play out across India. I think many states are coming into the affordable housing and even the affordable renting for tenements for migrant labor. As a bank, we would like to collaborate with any of the builders who would want to do such projects. And I assure you that we will fast track the sanctions for these. And we are going to the board to get approval so that we have some kind of a different metrics in place to fund these kind of projects. Another area that I cannot but help mention is the diversity. Gender diversity, ethnicity diversity, I think in the boards, this is very important. Every set of people bring their own set of skills. And this really helps the companies work at a much higher potential. Institutions that are taking proactive measures to ensure customer and employee reliefs will be able to differentiate. By adopting a vigilant short-term and medium-term action plan, we will all emerge from this crisis as stronger, confident, and socially responsible institutions. COVID-19 will change our behavior as customers, as citizens, as employees in India and around the world. As people become more focused on their well-being, businesses also will need to understand how they can be a part of the new health ecosystem that is likely to dominate customer thinking going forward. The idea that every business is a health business is already emerging in many corners of the financial services. And that is perhaps one of the few positive lasting impacts to result from COVID-19. I compliment SICKI for serving Indian trade and business by protecting and promoting their interests at the regional, national, and international levels and playing a major role in propelling economic growth. I am happy to know that SICKI has suggested several constructive ideas to MSME units for taking them forward in this critical juncture. On behalf of Indian Bank, I assure that the bank will continue to give its best for propelling the economic growth with our expanded presence. Taking this opportunity, I would like to conclude that Indian Bank will certainly be expanding into the new horizon and would like to be recognized as the partner in progress for any of the members of SICKI and any emerging new entrepreneurs. I wish you all the best in all your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And as always, precise and focused. And it just goes to show why you are easily one of the best modern day bankers in India. And with your permission, a couple of questions from our members. I'll summarize them into one. Dr. Raghavan wants to know if the MSME, you did touch upon it, but perhaps with, you can offer in greater clarity. The MSME sector is starving for water fund. Could you please share the bank's role in extending more facilities to the MSME? Then one of our executive committee members is possibly the largest operators of buses in the country. Parveen Travels MD Afzal wants to know, Madam, passenger transport industry has still not been considering restructuring, excepting a very few. Most of the banks are still hesitating to support the transport industry. Can you give us some view on this segment, please? I did take it up with you earlier on, but maybe he can get the answer from you directly. Mr. Somi Azari, one of our executive committee members, under your leadership, Madam, there has been a great positive change in the service provided by rural branches such as Padapai. We hope to see foreign exchange reach to rural exchange, FX branches reach rural branches, even if in a limited way. We hope to see your branch fully operational soon. The final question, of course, is RBI's monetary policy meeting highlighted the potential doubling of GNPS for banks. What could be the intervention sought to help the sector? Does government have the fiscal space to provide support to the already higher NPA banks? Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. I think these questions cover the entire gamut. And yeah, I'll start with the MSME part. I think previously also there have been a lot of webinars on MSME, and people are aware of what the government is doing on MSME and what kind of steps have been announced. From the bank side, yes, immediately, even before the government reacted and came out with the guarantee, the CGTMSE guarantee, Indian Bank had announced a COVID emergency loan of 10% additional on the working capital funds limits that our customers had availed. And there has been a good offtake of this immediate requirement to pay the wages or to even meet the fixed expenses during that first month, starting March end. This was a good initiative. The other part is, yes, from the government side, the guaranteed credit, the 3 lakh crore component, that Indian Bank had about 4.5 lakh customers who were eligible. And as I said, almost all of them have been sanctioned and about 70% have been disbursed also, these loans. And this, I think, is keeping that sector going, at least the customers who are banking with Indian Bank, definitely. And now going forward, MSME is already has been extended to restructuring 1.0, restructuring 2.0, starting from 2019 January. Again, it has been extended up to December 2020. Now there is a 3.0 that is extended up to, this is available up to March 2021. And now the MSME restructuring also covers the accounts that are under stress, the SMA 012 also, in the sense that anything that was overdue 90 days as on 29th February, that is also covered. So the MSME coverage given by the Reserve Bank of India is much more than what has been given either for the corporates or the retail. So this is, I think, MSME would be covered in full. And the banks are coming out with their board-approved policies to roll it out quickly. And in Indian Bank, we already have it in place. So we are reaching out to the borrowers, especially those under stress. Because as I said earlier, not every borrower wants to, take this additional figure or take restructuring, because it would also mean that this would be reported to CRILIC, and it would reflect in his credit score and his credit rating. So these things have to be taken with a proper discipline and a proper caution. There is a cost to everything. So when you really need it, please do take. But if you don't need it and you're just keeping it as a cushion, trust me that the bank would help when the requirement is there. Unnecessarily don't compromise your credit risk. But I think MSME sector definitely needs it. But going forward, as I earlier said, it is for the bigger players in the market because these MSMEs sell after all to the government or to the bigger industry. And these have to be really coming up with clearing the payments or coming on to TReDS so that the liquidity to the MSME sector is actually made much more smoother. This we are working with the government definitely, and with the big players also. We are part of the TReDS platforms, and the turnover there is increasing day by day. I think MSME is working with Indian Bank. Please don't worry. If there is any problem, you can always send. I think we have given a single point of contact to SICI, you can reach out to that person, that officer, or send an email to me. We will definitely take it up. That said, now the question about the buses and the travel industry. I don't think the particular, I mean, you mentioned, which travels you mentioned?
Parveen Travels.
Parveen Travels. I don't know if they are banking with us. I don't think so. If they are, then I would
Well, are
welcome.
you there with us? You can wait.
If banking with us, I would have a VC with you. If not banking with us, I can't answer for other banks. I can support our customers, but this is definitely an industry that would require help. And if, as I said, we would like to look into the issues that are
We are
there.
banking with, good evening, madam. We are banking with the Equitas Bank.
Equitas Small
We don't
Finance.
see, yeah, we don't seem to get any type of support from that bank. They have their own limitations.
Yeah.
And is there any way now we can shift over to other banks in case, is it possible?
I think, yeah, it all depends again on your, profile of the company. So if you can send us an email,
Yeah,
we
of
will
course, ma'am.
definitely look into that and
Yeah, I'll
see,
get in
because I
touch
don't
with our
think,
president and through Siki, I'll approach you.
I sent you the
Because
mail. You
Since
sent
we have, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
About the Forex branches, I think we have established now a Forex hub. So there need not be Forex branches across the country. Now with the merger of Allahabad Bank, this has now doubled in size. So we have branches across the country and we have established Forex hubs. So whatever Forex transaction has to happen in any branch, it would anyway be handled through the nearest hub. And there is one in Chennai for the south and Calcutta, so Bombay. This would definitely be very quick, very fast, and also give you a proper, very good Forex rate because it works at the whole treasury level. So Forex, whichever the branch that Patya, the branch, I did not get the name of the rural branch, but every branch can now handle Forex through the hub.
Yeah, thank you.
The NPAs, I think this is the question. RBI has said, 14%, 12.5%, depending on whether you're a private bank, public sector bank, whatever. I think, RBI has done that projections before they came out with this restructuring circular. Whatever it is, I can speak for our bank, and whatever stress test we have taken moratorium, we see the figures that are coming out, how many units are using moratorium. I think the numbers are coming down month by month as we speak. The collections are improving. That said, it is still an uncertain future. Now, once this August 31st, the moratorium ends and the restructuring phase begins, that would be the real test. But we would again extend the restructuring to everyone. I don't see the NPA stress being out of the ordinary for Indian Bank or any bank for that matter. Mr. Rajnish Kumar also mentioned that. So I think it is under control, and that would prove the resilience of the bank's balance sheet. What I'm preaching, I should be practicing also. So we are trying to keep the bank, as you see the Q1 results, we provided a lot and kept not bothered too much about showing a big net profit. So I think, again, we also believe that liquidity and the strength of the balance sheet is what matters. So with that, I think I will close, and all the best.
Thank you so much, madam.
And over to Dr.
Thank you so much. I may now request the Senior Vice President, Mr. A.R. Aaron, to kindly deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Ms. Padmaja Chunduru, MD and CEO of Indian Bank, members of industry, members of the media, friends, ladies and gentlemen, wishing you a very good evening today. On behalf of all of us at SICI, I'm glad to address you and propose the vote of thanks to today's annual general body meeting. We at SICI would like to thank Ms. Padmaja Chunduru for addressing us. This, especially considering her pressing commitments amidst the ongoing pandemic. We thank you, Ms. Chunduru, for your insightful address, which covered the relevant issues facing industry at large and having outlined for us the road ahead. We are glad you specifically spoke about our country's MSME sector, which is the backbone of any economy. It's very important to get our MSMEs back on track at the earliest, such that we can kickstart our economy onto its vibrant path. It was earlier on. SICKI will be specifically contributing towards this and look forward to working with Indian Bank, Ms. Chunduru. Good to know Indian Bank's readiness to explore new avenues to support companies, which is so important in today's COVID lockdown scenario. Thank you again for addressing our 110th AGM today. We would like to thank one and all for joining us for today's AGM. While appreciating your participation with us, we look forward to your increased support in the time to come, while we significantly evolve and rise above the ongoing challenges. Thank you and wishing you safe times ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Arun. And with this, the formal inaugural session of the 110th Annual General Meeting is coming to an end.